Hi there, it's Beth from Aging Care Solutions. Thanks for stopping back, or if you're here for your first time, thank you for visiting my channel. I offer experienced guidance for caregivers, families, and seniors traveling the care journey. I've been a senior care advisor for 20 years, and in that time, not only was it my professional career to work in home health and home care, but I was also managing my mother, and for a short time, I was helping manage my 90, I think she made it to 97-year-old grandmother. And in that time, what I noticed is that my mother's friends, family were starting to notice that my mom was getting forgetful. So I didn't have someone like me as a resource. So I hope to be that for you and for your family as you travel this journey of kind of being prepared, just in a way having a little bit of a playbook so that you can understand what might be coming down the pike, what your options are for care, and how to go about kind of rolling that out so it's not happening in a crisis. What happened with my family was that, well, my mother was widowed very young. She was 54 years old when my dad died. So she was really on top of everything. She was still working. I don't think she worked more than another 5 years after that. So she retired right before she was 60. But she had really gotten on top of working with a financial advisor. She also she met with an elder law attorney and prepared a trust so that in the event that anything were to happen to her, that she would be able to protect her assets, protect her home, protect her finances and accounts and things like that. So by the time I stepped in, when I realized in 2008 that she was really struggling, it took she wasn't really struggling at that point. I just knew that she had issues at that point, but she was so highly functioning. She was still reading, she was still driving, managing everything. She was just having, I guess, moments, if you would, of starting to get a little bit more reclusive, not really being as social as she was before. But it unfolded over, a year and a half. When it finally came to my attention, I really knew. And when my grandmother, her mother, fell, that was my window to come and really try to figure out what am I going to do? How am I going to help my mother, especially during this crisis of her mother going in for hip surgery and the 10 days that ensued, where my grandmother didn't come out of that anesthesia. The surgeon warned me. He said that, at this age, people are very frail, and she may not just respond by coming out of this anesthesia. So he knew what he was saying because it absolutely rolled out that way. And I was able to get a real glimpse of how my mother was operating. So one of the things that I was able to do was after my grandmother passed, it was not very long after that. So that happened in January. By May, I was moving my mother. I was telling friends I basically had to kidnap my mother because she did not want to come. She didn't think there was anything wrong. But I had a baseline of her brain from 2008 on an MRI, and when we had it done another couple years later, it was pretty clear that there was an issue that was taking place. So what I did in that time was I got her doctor, her primary care doctor, a neurologist, and her attorney and financial advisor to write me just a brief letter on their letterhead that I kept, safe for her. But when she wanted to know, why do I have to move? Why do I have, I want to stay here. This is where I've always lived. I had to really break the news to her. You have memory issues, and I don't think that you're safe to live by yourself. So and I also told her I needed help with my kids. I had just toddlers at that point. I had 2-year-old twins. So she did really enjoy that. She was my little helper. Even though I was helping her, she was my helper. But one of the things that we knew pretty shortly afterwards is that I wanted her to be in a community that was active, that had clubs, that had live entertainment, that had, pastoral services like church services. I wanted her to have a place where she really enjoyed the food, that she could walk the halls, that we could walk outside, that had little areas, little benches, picnic tables. There was a cafe. So we started our journey of looking for assisted livings. And when we started looking back in 2010, I guess it was 2010, these private homes were just starting to really start to pop up. They're private group assisted livings where a nurse practitioner would buy a home and invite or vet, 5 or 8 residents to come in and live in the home. They get very good one-on-one care. And my mother did live in a place like that for a very short time. But initially, I moved her to a 3-level facility in not too far from me in the state of Maryland, in another county, just north of us. And the cost was considerably different. It was lower. And it was only a 30-minute drive, not even a 30-minute drive for me. So if you start looking for a family member, I would do one of two things. I would consider moving them closer to you if it's feasible, because either you or a sibling or someone, because it is best for somebody to be able to visit, keep an eye on the type of care that they're getting, let the care team and the marketing team and the nursing staff and everybody know, yes, I will be stopping in. You're gonna see me, and I'm gonna be stopping in and checking on my loved one. And if that person lives too far away or the cost is prohibitive to where you live, someone's going to have to help your mom tour. There are services out there. There's 2 really good ones, A Place for Mom, and there's Care Patrol. That's another one where the people from Care Patrol will actually pick up your parent at their home or their apartment or wherever they live, and they will tour them. They will bring them to an assisted living. They'll get a binder from the marketing people that talks about the different levels of care that are offered there. The reason that I chose and that we chose the place for my parent was based on knowing that she had dementia and it was going to progress. I wanted to make sure that there was a couple different types of levels of care. She was not well enough to start out in independent living because she would have been managing all of her own medication. She would have also had to buy groceries for herself because they would provide breakfast and dinner, but she would have to have, a kitchen stocked with things. And it would basically be on me to do that weekly grocery shopping for her, making sure that she knew what time to go down for meals, making sure that she was taking her medication. And I had a conversation with the director of nursing on that campus who assessed her. And she said, your mom's going to start to be alien. If we move her into independent living, because she has been living on her own for these 72 years, she's not going to know, she's going to start to depend on her neighbors to tell her things. And those neighbors that are paying to live here aren't going to want the responsibility of making sure that they alert somebody, oh, there's music downstairs for St. Patrick's Day, or oh, they're having a Valentine's Day celebration, we're all heading down. So I thought it best that she move right into assisted living to start out. It cost more money, but in the long run, I knew that she was being, kept abreast of all the different things that were going on, the meal times. And I also enrolled her in something called the Connections program. And it was like a 3-time weekly, like on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they would do just different interactions to try to keep stimulating their brain to do interactive things. And so she did like that club. She really did. And some of her neighbors, sometimes though, she would just stand up in the middle of it and go back to her apartment. So yeah, anyway, that was why I chose this particular community. And the other was that it was family owned. It was owned by a family who had 9 other facilities in the state of Pennsylvania, and this was their one and only in the state of Maryland. I also loved the team of people that worked there. Everybody there just, it takes a special kind of person to work in assisted living. And I just like that they all really seemed to really care for my mother. They would give her hugs. They joked around with her. She was just somebody who, some people thought she worked there because you just couldn't tell that she had dementia. And she would sometimes tell people, oh yeah, that I think that office is down that hallway. And of course, she'd see him come back over and they'd say, did you say that? And they'd be like, yeah, here, let me get you to the front desk so you can ask somebody. Anyway, what started out as a 10-year stay at that facility, I moved her. I moved her closer to me and moved her into a group home. And she was one of the only people that had really advancing dementia at that point. And she followed somebody out the door one day, and she started wandering the neighborhood, and it just was a huge red flag for me and for the owner of the home, which I absolutely loved, and I referred a lot of people to that beautiful home. But it wasn't right. That's why they have secured neighborhoods for people that have dementia, because they're always ready to just start walking, especially if they've got. And my mother was super fit, played tennis for 30 years. So she was somebody who just walked and walked and walked. So I would go up and I'd walk with her for 30, 40 minutes. Then we'd have a little picnic sometimes on one of the verandas, or we'd sit out in the back in the green space and watch all the birds come to the bird feeder. I loved it for her. I was so happy. I knew she was safe. Of course, I worried for her because she couldn't remember things, but I was there enough that I knew she was getting good care. We had our challenges. There was times when she started really getting, towards the end, combative and whatnot, and it's just the nature of that illness, and it was rough. So, but some of the things that are out there from an assisted living standpoint, I would say the more that you can, if you've got a weekend to go, is have two or three that you narrow it down to. And sometimes it's gonna come down to the cost. And one of the things that I was unaware of is that yearly there is a 3 to 5% increase in the cost of your assisted living rental. It is always going to be month to month. They do not make you sign a long-term lease, 1 year, 2 year. No, it's month to month. Which makes it nice because, your loved one could start out in independent living with their dog, maybe they're driving. And then if there's a health scare or someone has a stroke or there's just a decline in health, I mean, I know people are living longer, but sometimes people are living. My grandmother lived until she was 95 years old. She lived independently, and it wasn't even assisted living. It was independent. She was living in an apartment down the street from the skilled assisted living she moved into eventually. But I think what families don't know, or what people who are starting to look, these levels of care, like again, independent living is one of the things that's possible with someone who's higher functioning, but they just don't want the upkeep of everything that it takes to keep a home in good shape, right? So lawn care, landscaping, just really keeping the house really clean, doing the windows every year, making sure the gutters are done, making sure that if there's snow removal, that's done. Obviously doing the trash and recycles, just everything that comes along with being a homeowner, taking care of your own vehicle. When you get into your 80s, unless you're super fit, it is a lot, and you end up having to hire people to do it anyway. So sometimes when you find out that a neighbor has moved somewhere, they go and they'll have lunch with them and they're like, wow, this is great. What's going on here? And they're like, nothing. This is Tuesday here. This is what we do. We have happy hour. We have seated yoga. There's, sometimes there's a pool, there's walking clubs, there's mahjong groups, there's art classes that you can take. Sometimes there's book clubs. I mean, there's anything that you can imagine that people will want to do. They do Wii bowling, and yeah, we did all kinds of stuff. I loved going there visiting because it was always kind of fun for me too. But there's these private homes, and then there's what I consider medium size, up to 100, 150 residents. And then you'll sometimes get where there's over 200 residents or more that live. Some of them are considered really large, and they're almost like a whole village. They're considered continuing care retirement communities, CCRC. Sometimes those involve a very large buy-in, and that money, so you may spend $300 or $400 or $500,000 to move in, and that money follows you for all the years that you're there. You will still have to pay rent if you're renting independently in an apartment, but once you go into assisted living, that money follows you. And also for long-term care, if you don't exceed that for long-term care, then it's willed back to your family. You'd have to find out more about that because a lot has changed over the years. And then there's also, of course, skilled nursing facilities. And those are typically, I think the average length of stay is 24 months in the United States for long-term skilled nursing. It is a nursing home with, 24-hour nursing care that's available. So at that point, someone's either many times on hospice or they have a high medical acuity that's requiring them to have nursing care. So it is that's the biggest difference. But assisted living, I would make it a couple months worth of taking your time looking so that you do find the right one. Many times, if you were to look in your area, there could be a group assisted living right in your parents' neighborhood. You wouldn't even really know it. That way, they'd still be able to go to their own church, see their own doctors. Although there are contracted physicians that come into these buildings, so you'd get at most assisted livings, there's usually a podiatrist, a mobile dentist that comes in. We had a primary care physician that saw and podiatrist every. I think you have to do podiatry every 6 months in order for Medicare to pay it. But she saw her primary almost every month, and it worked out. It worked out well for as long as it could. I'm trying to think of anything else. We did have a wait list. We were on a wait list for 10 months. And in that time, I thought, should I look at other places? But every time we went there, she was like, I like this place. This place, I like it. Every time we came there, we would drive up that really long entrance and she was like, oh, I like this place already. And I was like, we do like it. And I would remind her, yeah, we're going to be moving you here. She's like, okay. I said, remember, we got a wait list. So anyway, it all worked out. I was really pleased with the care. I'm glad that it was only 14 miles, maybe a little bit more than that to me. But it was so worth it. And for the 10 years that she resided there, I was very pleased that she got the care that she did. And the cost, thank God my mother had money. She had a pension, Social Security, and then she had private savings. Because the cost is going to run you anywhere from, depending on where you live, I'm going to say 5,000 to 12,000 a month for assisted living. Depends on how fancy it is, because some of these places, they just built a new place here, and we are 18 miles outside of Washington, and this place is off the hook. I mean, I walked in there and it looked like the Waldorf or something in New York City. Very beautiful artwork, just tastefully appointed decor. It was just astounding. And there's people in this area, federal retirees and people who had two incomes and were able to, save that, that can afford it, and kudos to them. But there are a lot of different resources out there. I think investigating. I think if you call a place for mom, you're going to find out that you're going to get a lot of phone calls from them. You're going to get not only phone calls from them, but you're going to get it from the people that they refer, the companies that they refer. So just be prepared for that. But I will say that if you called your local care patrol and ask just to have a free consultation, to have one of their reps call and speak to you about the options. A lot of times you say, what is your budget? They'll ask you, what is your budget? What part of town do you want to be on? So if you say, oh, we want to be outside Pittsburgh, or we want to be outside anywhere, Annapolis, Maryland, then that person would know, okay, we've got 11 options. If you want to narrow it down so that you're closer to where, your old neighborhood is, we're looking at these three. And it's a great way to kind of start going in. We'd like a tour, set it up on a weekend, ask if they have a brunch on Sundays, make it sort of an outing so that you can see what is it like when families are there. What's it like, during the week it's quiet. It's the residents. And then on the weekends it's busier because families, grandkids, friends are all coming to visit. So, there is a lot that goes into it, but I think once you do, and remember, if you can always change your mind. I mean, my mother lived there for 6 years and I moved her closer just because I had gone back to work full time at that point, and it was so hard for me to get up there during the week that I moved her closer. And, she was there a year before we had to move her back, and they took her right back. They were like, of course, we'd love to have her back. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to let you know that there are options. Assisted living is great if someone has the money. Otherwise, someone's going to try to stay independently on their own. You're going to have to formulate a team. That means, bring the care in to the home, and it can be done. Check out my other videos because I talk about it, about, assembling that team. Even if someone's considered homebound, they're not driving anymore, is bringing a primary care physician in. You can also get home health orders written so that they can get PT and have nursing care come in. So, so everybody wants to stay home, but if you have the resources, you want your parent or yourself, you want to remain social and you want to be around other people and engaged and doing stuff, then assisted living or even senior living in an independent community can be a good start. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And I would love for you to subscribe. I'm really trying to grow this channel, and it's slow going, but with every video that I make, I feel like I'm offering, I feel drawn, and I really feel called to do this. I have been doing this for so long, working with families and sitting with them and hugging them and crying and taking their photos for their families. And I've adopted cats. I have filed police reports for people being scammed. So I've done everything for the people that entrusted me with their care and the recommendations that I made. So you're in good hands. You really are. I have done this for so long, and I have a real special place in my heart for looking out for seniors, and for also, it's not too far off in the near future that I will be considered a senior. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that there are options out there, and it's not the end. It's not the end. We are just going to keep on going and trying to have as much fun as we possibly can, meeting new friends and doing things that push us outside of our comfort zone. And this is one of those opportunities for me. So considering assisted living might be pushing you out of your comfort zone. It probably would. It would do that for me. But anyway, I'm here as a resource. So if you have any questions or you want to have a consult with me, I haven't even really gotten that far, but certainly put it in the comments, and then we could privately chat. And I'd be happy to send my cell phone number to you. All right. I hope to see you at the next video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.